Weston and Weah make Champions League history. No American women in the World 11? What? And we preview the first edition of the MK Derby. That and more on Friday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kickaround, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's most entertaining country, coming to you live.
Yes, we still bring that entertainment value to you, the world citizen. Hi, Robert. Sorry.
Well, I was letting them know that you can catch us live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. My name, Robert Kerr. The guy on the other side of the country and your screen is the one, the only Mr. Jason Davis. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready. It's Friday. It doesn't feel like Friday, but I know it's Friday because that's what all my technology tells me, is that it's Friday. So, and you too, Robert. You told me it's Friday. Happy Friday.
It is the end of the week. Well, why does it not feel like a Friday for you? Has it been a long week? Are you doing the whole like December push? You're trying to do too much ahead of the holidays and stuff?
My wife traveled for work. She's been gone since Tuesday, which means it's me and two kids, two boys. And it's not. I'm not complaining. Like, I'm a parent. It comes with the territory. I love my kids, but it's a little different. That's all. It's a little different. But I'm ready for the weekend. Let's go.
Solo parenting.
Yes, that thing. Which, shout out to anybody doing solo parenting because you are a hero.
So on Wednesday, my cat joined us on the microphone as our new little guest. Has your children interrupted your radio show at all?
Yes. I want to say yes. That's definitely happened. I think my kid made an appearance on the Best Soccer Show a couple weeks ago. I was by myself. I was solo hosting that program, and he decided he wanted to come down and see what Papa was doing because he just wanders into the – nobody pays attention to him. And my wife's not like, hey, don't go down there. Papa's working. No, he comes down, and then he has to interject. So, Mr. Thiago's made an appearance on the Best Soccer Show. Maybe one day he'll be here as well. We'll see.
He's been on here. I think we had him speaking Spanish when you were down in Puerto Rico. I think he joined us.
Oh, that's right.
So he's done the trifecta. He's done the triple crown of your soccer shows.
He interrupted the show in Puerto Rico. Yeah, that for sure. Yeah, okay. Well, there we go. Your cat, my kid. What's next? What's next on the Morning Kickaround?
We shall see. The cat does lurk in the rafters above me, so hopefully I don't get kamikazed at some point by a leaping cat while we're doing the show, but could be fun if that happens. Before we get into today's program at large, click that subscribe button. We are ticking away or ticking up the subscriber number. Help us and join the MK Ultras. This is the ground level. Get in now.
Here's what it is.
Be the formative group.
500 by 2025, by the beginning of 2025. So we have 2.5 weeks to get to 500. I think we can do it. Just tell somebody, please. Is this too intense? Please tell somebody to subscribe to Morning Kickaround. Tell them about the show, and then they'll subscribe, and then everybody will be happy, and the show will grow, and then it's to the moon. Let's go.
Yeah, the 500 that we get will be just the launching pad for the 50,000 that we'll have by the end of 2025. Follow us on social media, MKickaround, X, Instagram, and the Blue Sky. We're there.
Yeah.
Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. All right, let's get into it. Friday's long balls here on Morning Kickaround. Let's go. This week, history was made in the Champions League. Long ball number 1 for this morning. Weston McKennie and Timothy Weah make history in the Champions League, being the first goal assisted and netted by Yankees. What do you think of that, Jason?
Yankees. How do you feel? Okay, look, you are our resident half Englishman, half American, which, by the way, I want to also mention that in the open to the show, in the cold open, which Robert does every day, you kind of tripped when you got to that word derby or derby.
I'm stuck in the middle there.
I think you are.
I was wondering why you're laughing at me, but that makes sense.
Well, but I feel your pain, right? But I feel like if either of us can get away with it, it's you. I do feel ridiculous when I say the word derby because I'm American. That word is derby. It's not the Kentucky Derby. It's a Kentucky Derby. But whenever we have these games between two teams from the same city in England, we have to say it's a derby. It's not. For us, it should be derby. But everyone feels crazy saying it as derby. I don't know what to do about this, Robert. This is a problem for us, I think. Right?
When I was a youngster, wearing a shirt and tie to school, I would say Darby. But now that my accent is fully fledged American, it doesn't feel right whatsoever.
Yeah.
I have no problem going back and forth with soccer and football. Like, I'm beyond that. That conversation, throw that out the window. But Darby is something I haven't quite wrapped my head around just
I think
yet.
the problem with the word Yankee for me is that I, as an American, I connect that to the baseball team. That's the baseball team are the Yankees, and I am no lover of the New York Yankees. I don't want to start anything with our listeners who might actually like the Yankees, but I am
For
no
those
lover
who
of the
identify
Yankees.
themselves as Yankees.
Yes, if you self-identify as a Yankee, good for you. I don't, but I'm also not one of those guys. Like, so if you are, this is going to get real deep, sociology-wise. If you're from the South, you know that word is anathema. You cannot say the word. Unless you want to call somebody one, in which case it is a slur. If you are a Yankee, you're a Yankee. If you're down south, nobody wants to be a Yankee. Those are Northerners and Yankees. But of course, Tim Weah born in New York City. Weston McKennie born in Texas. It's a Texas boy. If he went to Texas and they called him a Yankee, they wouldn't be saying it with love. They'd be saying it with like, "Oh, look at you, you're a Yankee." Come on. We got to be careful with that. You're throwing it around willy-nilly over here.
But it's an identifier as an American. I think we all know.
I know it is. But I don't. Are they using it in Italy? Oh, look, it's a great goal. I mean, it's acrobatic from Weston McKennie. Tim Weah gets a second crack at the cross after initially having his attempt blocked. I think that was Rico Lewis out on him defending. But good stuff, obviously, to look up and see the run. McKennie starts the sequence. I think Vlahovic does a good job of dragging some defenders. City is just a disaster, though.
Yeah, we should note that this goal was a clinching goal to defeat Manchester City on top of it all.
But that Manchester City is a shadow of their former selves right now. And maybe they'll get back, and maybe they'll be good, and the talent is still there. And Pep Guardiola, as long as he doesn't claw all the skin off his face, will probably still be a good coach when they pull out of this. But that is not a sort of vintage City. It's important for Juve, and they can only play the team in front of them, right? I don't want to diminish what Juve did because they beat Manchester City when they needed to. And, of course, again, Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, both of them off the bench, add the final goal, make sure that game stays as a win in Juve's column, and it is history for us. I guess I'm a little bit cynical about these moments, which is weird because if you said to me 10 years ago, there's going to be an American in a Champions League game for Juventus of all clubs, I would have been like, what? No, that's never going to happen.
Sounds like a Mad Lib. That's a soccer Mad Lib. That's not real.
That's a dream that I can't even allow myself to have because I don't want to suffer any disappointment if it never comes true. And yet here we are, and I'm sitting there going, oh, yeah, it's okay. That's good for them. Like I don't know. There's this sort of this, speaking of the whole Yankee thing, there's this rah-rah USA feeling to this that I guess I'm sort of over. Like, at this point, I'm ready for us to move on from that, for this to be common, for this to be normal, for us to be like, yeah, America scored in the Champions League, totally happens all the time. An American assisted in the Champions League, totally happens all. Two Americans involved in the same goal, totally happens all the time. I'm ready for that to be a thing. I know I shouldn't take it for granted that it will be, but I'm glad it happened.
I mean, and let's not forget that 3 Americans scored for one team in the Champions League with PSV earlier in the week. So, I mean, as my journey through this Lions success, like last year, with their success, it was like, this hasn't been done since, 85. This has been, and then with every success, another record broken. And you could say maybe that, paralleled with Americans, in Europe, and especially these Champions League competitions, like knocking down, adding more bullet points to the national resume, so to speak.
Things have to happen first before they can happen all the time, right? Before they can become a thing that we're just sort of used to. So this is a first with 3 American goal scorers in a Champions League game. It's a first with an American assisting an American in a game in this situation. Those are good things. That's progress. And we're going to have a conversation later in the show about the attitude towards American players. And these are the kind of things that are going to change those attitudes, we hope.
Yeah, indeed. And they also the two Americans did the dual. I think Wea did the sword. The Harry Potter celebration.
They did
with
the
him,
Harry
so-
Potter celebration together. That's Weston's celebration. He's a big pothead. Is that what they call those Harry Potter fans?
Sure,
I don't know what they call them.
it's acceptable.
I don't know. And then obviously Tim Weah joined in with him, which was nice. That's nice. That warms the cockles of my American soccer heart, which is always fun.
I love a good cockle talk. Long ball number 2, FIFPro released their World 11 squads.
Yes.
And we're going to take a look at those. But the headline from this side of the table is the women's side did not include any women, which is wild.
Any American women. You didn't say. You got to say Yankees. We're sticking with that theme. You just said the women's 11 doesn't include any women, which would be strange if that was the case.
Hey, if you watch certain news networks, maybe you think that that's the case
yes.
across the board. But yes,
Yeah.
let me clarify. No American women
Yeah.
in this team, and it's wild because Americans won the Olympics, and usually winners of major awards find their way into these sort of teams.
Yeah. American success in the Olympics has not delivered any respect from. And remember, okay, so just for anybody who doesn't know, FIFPro is sort of like the global organization of soccer players. It's not a union. Mostly because they don't have, I guess you could call it that, but they don't usually have bargaining power the way that we think of unions having bargaining power. But they do advocate for players. They are player first, right? So their membership is the players. And the players voted. This is the player vote that delivered this FIFPro 11. Now, there are obviously way more non-American players out there, members of FIFPro, than there are Americans. Some of these players are certainly top level and deserve recognition. Bonmati is your Ballon d'Or winner. Marta, come on, who's going to say bad things about Marta? Barbara Banda scored the winning goal in the NWSL final for Orlando, and she's been incredible. You do have five English players on this list.
That makes me ill.
Earps, Bronze, Greenwood, Walsh, and James are all English.
That's insane to say Greenwood and Bronze are stronger than Naomi Girma. Like that nothing can convince me.
Right, that's the one. Look, okay, there's an argument at goalkeeper, I think. Mary Earps gets the nod here.
She's done well.
Alyssa Nair, I don't know. She deserves some respect. Maybe she's not first 11. I don't know. Bronze, Carmona from Real Madrid. Greenwood, as we mentioned, midfielders, Bonmati, Putellas, and Walsh. All three of those players play for Barcelona. Two of them Spanish, one of them English. All of them play for Barcelona. Barcelona has been great. Barcelona has been dominant. Barcelona wins the Champions League. But they don't play anybody in their league. Let's just be honest about that. They don't play anybody in La Liga Femenil that can actually beat them. Then you have, obviously, the forwards. In Barbara Banda, 2 clubs. She landed in Orlando, helped them win a title. Linda Caicedo, the talented Colombian player, okay, Real Madrid, Lauren James, and Marta, we mentioned. And I'm not going to say Marta shouldn't be here, even though I'm not sure she's been at this level. But Naomi Girma is getting, once again, disrespected by world football. And I don't understand. Like, you can say, well, maybe Lindsey Horan is not this level. Fine. I have had my issues with Lindsey Horan in the middle. Maybe Roosevelt. She's very, very good when she's healthy, but has she had a long enough run of solid fitness to put her in this group? Fine, you can make that argument. We can talk about the front line. Trinity Rodman, Sophia Smith, are they at the level of Banda, Caicedo, James, and Marta? Whatever. Those are debatable. But you cannot convince me on any world, and we live on Earth, last time I checked, that Naomi Girma is not one of the best 11 players in the world, especially considering what the U.S. just did at the Olympics with the gold medal. Right? It's right there in front of you. And Girma was the rock who helped the U.S. win that gold medal, and she loses out to Lucy Bronze? Really?
And Lucy Bronze is like living on past reputations, in my opinion, completely.
Yes. Great player. At one point, the best defender in the world, probably, Lucy Bronze. I'm fine with that. but not now. Not above Naomi Girma. Like, what are we talking about here? What is happening? What is this? Is this just? I would love to know what our listeners think, what our viewers think. Like, do we see this as anti-American bias? Do we see this as a lack of information, a lack of awareness? Players are as susceptible to information vacuums or information limits as anybody else, right? And maybe we hold players to a higher standard. They should have respect for their fellow player, and they'll be better at judging. And really, if you want to go to the experts, it's the players, not the media. The media are ridiculous. They don't know any. They didn't play the game at a high level. All these players played the game at a high level, the ones that voted for this. And this is who they voted for. They voted for 4 Barcelona players. They voted for 5 English players. They voted for, I mean, come on, what are we doing here?
And it's not like you could say that Girma was so new to the scene that maybe, she didn't quite get the attention.
No.
I mean, she did that same level of performance in the World Cup last year.
Yeah.
I mean, Girma's form didn't come out of nowhere.
Look
So
at
is FIFPro a European-based outfit by any chance?
Their offices are I think they're in the Netherlands, but I don't know that that's necessarily, I mean, they represent players all over the world. I don't think that's an excuse. Or maybe, again, maybe it does. Where FIFPro's based has nothing to do with the players who are based all over the world who vote in this. And again,
so NWSL players are voting for these?
Maybe players didn't vote. Maybe players had the opportunity and didn't take we don't know what the turnout was. Right? That's part of this too, right? We just kind of go, oh, all the players voted on this? Do you think every player submitted a vote? Probably not, right? And maybe the players that voted heavily are players based in Europe. Maybe that's a thing here. I'll point out, Barbara Banda, who again went from China to Orlando and won a title, but she's one of 2 NWSL best base players. The other one is Marta, right? And Marta is how many World Players of the Year has Marta won? 5 or 6? Some
reputation goes beyond NWSL play, right?
Some of that, yeah, exactly. My point is that Marta, despite being an NWSL player for the last 6 or 7 years, whatever it's been, is respected outside of NWSL circles because of what she's done with Brazil and because she's still playing at a high level, because she's won the award. This does feel more like a popularity contest than an actual evaluation of who the best players over the last year were. That's what it feels like to me. And I don't like there's this thing about me. We just talked about this. Oh, it should be normal that Americans score in the Champions League and I shouldn't have to be like, oh, rah, rah, USA every time it happens. This is sort of the opposite of that. I feel weird getting up in arms about no Americans making the FIFPro 11 because it feels like my bias is showing. Like I'm wearing my USA bias on my sleeve here, and I don't want that to be. I don't want to be accused of that because I want to believe that I am objective in this. But I still think that very few people who have paid attention to this game are going to say that Naomi Girma does not deserve to be in this team. It's really hard for me to get to that place.
Yeah, it's a wild choice to omit her, especially with the winning the Olympics. Like, I mean, there's the spotlight. I mean, there's no under the radar if you're winning like the 1B competition in that whole space is pretty wild. And then actually, but I know these awards 11 tend to be forward heavy, but do you think a 3-3-4 formation could realistically work?
Yeah, this is the other thing, right? You have to kind of suspend your disbelief about these things because, yeah, and maybe that's a reason. Maybe you are bringing me back down to earth. Don't get all up in arms, Jason. Who cares about this?
Would she have been the 4th back?
An insane, they have an insane lineup or insane formation that no one would ever actually use. Now, let's as a point of comparison, let's bring up the men's team, right? Just to compare it, right? Well, obviously no Americans in this team, and nobody's upset about that. I'm not upset about that. Are you upset about that? No. Oh, okay. Ederson, Carvajal, Rudiger, Van Dijk really have no issues there. De Bruyne, okay.
That's reputation right there.
That might be reputation. Rodri, we know how important he was to City, and it's being proved every time they play without him. Toni Kroos, that feels like a sentimental pick. He was great at the Euros. But that feels like a sentimental pick. Bellingham, Mbappe, Haaland, Vinicius Jr. I mean, I really have no issue with this one. I mean, you could argue about De Bruyne. You could argue about Kroos. But this is still pretty solid, right? This is not like, who's the player that, oh, my God, I can't believe he's not in this team. I mean, you could look at numbers. You could go back. Mo Salah, but that's maybe he's not at that level over the whole year. I mean, it's to me, there's no player in either 11 that is being more disrespected than Naomi Girma, right? Like the absence wise, like there's no player who's missing from one of these that's being besmirched more than Naomi Girma, and I won't stand for it, Robert. I won't stand for it.
I'm stumping right there with you. And viewers, if you have someone for men's or the women's World 11 that you think should have been added, put that in the chat. Long ball number 3 here for Friday. Let's look ahead at the weekend. There's some compelling matchups on the way. Got to kick off our weekend preview, though, with the MK Derby.
Oh, is that what we're calling it? Okay.
The MK Derby. It's that maybe the what did I say in pre-show? The morning Kikiko?
Which is, I guess, about that's supposed to be a reference to El Clasico somehow.
Kikiko. Let's go with MK Derby. Liverpool versus Fulham. Liverpool, obviously, top of the Premier League. Fulham having an outstanding year. American Anthony Robinson most likely to feature in this one, too. Yeah. How will the Cottagers fare? Will they spring the first loss on the Reds since, week 4 of the season?
I'm not super confident about that, Robert. I think that's fair to say. Now, obviously, the draw against Arsenal was a fine showing for the Cottagers and a point that maybe you think of as a bonus point if you're a Fulham fan. I certainly do. I don't know that I want to press my luck and sit here and go, I expect something against Liverpool at Anfield. At Anfield. I was thinking about the history of this matchup, though. And recently, Liverpool won back in April in the league at Craven Cottage.
It was 2 very late goals for Liverpool still to win, I think, if I recall.
Yeah, and then there was the League Cup tie, which I think Liverpool ended up winning on aggregate 3-2. That last year as well, they met each other in the League Cup. It was 2-1 at Anfield and then 1-1 at Craven Cottage. I don't see a Fulham victory. Oh, March 2021. Fulham won at Anfield. This is the game I think I was trying to remember. Man, that's a long time ago.
That says something that you're like, didn't they just do that? Oh, yeah, 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, again, nobody expects it, right? So for Fulham to have any victories against Liverpool at Anfield is a surprise. I mean, you can go back to the Clint Dempsey goal, 2011. I'm looking at the match report right here. Clint Dempsey scored in the 85th minute of that game. I believe that goal kept Fulham in the Premier League. I think that's the goal that saved Fulham back in 2011, if I'm remembering my history right. So, yeah.
In that edition of Fulham pulling it out of the fire, I feel like they've got a few of those on their resume now. Where
that was a December match. It definitely didn't save them from relegation if it was in December. I'm thinking of a different Dempsey goal maybe, but he did score against Liverpool at Anfield. No, that was at Craven Cottage. All right, I'm getting my history all mixed up here, Rob. Let's just move on. Anyway, I don't expect a victory. I would be thrilled if they can get a draw.
Anthony Robinson, Jedi, does he do the mind tricks on Salah and keep him out of the net?
Well, you could argue that there might be some auditioning happening as well. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Anthony Robinson's level is better than Fulham, and there are clubs that have been linked to him. I don't think January is happening. I know that would be surprising, but could very easily see him moving in the summer, and I think Liverpool's the kind of club that he would thrive at, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
And there is some speculation on the fullback situation at Liverpool with Trent maybe leaving and Robertson's form kind of dipping a little bit. There is a possible need for fullback coverage at Anfield, but the derby that probably is going to pique the attention of more folks out there, the Manchester Derby, is on Sunday. I think the bad streak for Manchester City is 1 win in 10. So if there's a time for the red side of Manchester to get a win, it could be on Sunday.
Is it though? I mean, the thing about this derby that's fascinating, if you're a neutral, is it kind of is like watching I don't know. I guess I can't say high speed because neither of them is moving very well at the moment. Maybe it's like watching two old people like trying to move as fast as they can towards one another in order, to fight or something, and you're just like watching it like in slow. It's like it happening in slow motion. Like, are they actually gonna collide here? It's bad at City, 1 win in 10, and this is the darkest moment for City in how long, Robert? Like a decade? I mean,
I think I think they're tracing this sort of run of form back to like the relegation era of 20 plus years ago.
They haven't had this kind of bad run since they were pre UAE money City, right? They just haven't, right? They won that first title in 2012, and it's been pretty good since then, right? It's been lovely since then in the blue side of Manchester. And then obviously on the other side, like, they've been in the muck. They've been sort of stuck in quicksand for so long that I guess, there have been moments clearly for Manchester United, but of course with Ten Hag being fired and Emery coming in, and it's not going to be plug and play for Emery. He wants to change the system, or he has changed the system. He doesn't have his players. Sometimes I think that's an excuse, but in this case, you really have to make the argument that what is Emery supposed to do with a bunch of guys if he was hired to play the way he plays? If they looked at him and they looked at his resume and they looked at his time at Sporting and they said, we really like the way you play. We want you to do that at Manchester United. He's not going to walk into Manchester United, into Old Trafford, and say, we're just going to keep it the same way that Ten Hag did it because that's the kind of players we have. What you're going to do is have to adapt. And that means that players who are not comfortable in that system either have to learn it or you're just going to struggle for a while before you can get to a window where you can replace some of those players. I mean, this opens up big questions about how United spends moving forward. That is a thing. But for the moment, you kind of have to live with choppy results for Manchester United. We saw it. We saw it against Forest. I'm not sure the Victoria Pilsen victory was all that impressive either, with the gifts that Pilsen gave to Manchester United with Højlund's goals. Onana looked disastrous in that game once again.
Speaking of gift giving. Jeez.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. Yeah, he's feeling the holiday spirit, Andre Onana. He's like, I got gifts for everybody. Goals. Everybody gets goals. It's going to be interesting, fascinating. I could see it end up being like a 1-1 draw that just doesn't do doesn't make anybody happy on either side of the city.
I saw some memeing yesterday. The picture of Amorim on his unveiling press conference had a big smile and a twinkle in his eye, and then after that game yesterday, he looked a little bit weathered. And speaking of people looking a little bit disheveled compared to how they typically do, Ange Postecoglou, Tottenham. Before we move our attention away from England, you got to say, if Tottenham lose to Southampton at the weekend, does he lose his job?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how you can call it tenable to keep him around. I mean, the result in Glasgow, I'm not sure that game mattered all that much, right, to Ange's long-term job prospects. But you can't be bad in it. And he had the moment he pulls Timo Werner off at halftime, right? And then after the game talks about how the level wasn't good enough, the effort wasn't good enough for Timo Werner. When you've got him, and that's damage control on Ange's part. He's only doing what he can do, which is he sees a player who's not putting the effort in necessary, and he yanks him off. But that makes you as a manager look just as bad as the player, especially when you're in such a fragile position as Ange Postecoglou is right now. Because if there were lots of good results to back up your decision to pull Werner at halftime, you can say, well, I'm Ange Postecoglou. I'm winning games. I can make that decision. It's the best thing for the team. When you pull Timo Werner off at halftime because he's not giving you effort and the results have been what they've been for Spurs, what you're saying is they're not listening to me anymore. And it's pretty clear they're not listening to me anymore. They're not putting the effort in for me anymore. I've lost the dressing room. And I hate that for Ange. I like the guy. I think his personality is great for the league. But if the results aren't there, Spurs are absolutely the kind of club that's going to go, up, yank, pull the plug. We can't do it anymore. It's just not working. And this is to say that Spurs remains this weird limbo, ambitious club that just never hits that level, right? They never get to where they want to go. The high watermark is Pochettino taking them to a Champions League final. They're in 11th. They're in no danger of being pulled into the relegation zone, but that's not what they're supposed to be. So you can justify the firing because Spurs are not supposed to be a mid-table club. They're supposed to be higher up the thing, but then they've never gotten to the place of actually challenging for the title. So we're once again in this cycle. This is where Spurs fans always are. They're always in this cycle. And I've heard plenty of smart Spurs fans say they don't have the squad to do what Ange wants to do anyway. And they haven't really invested the way they need to be competitive at that level. So the expectations are outsized relative to the talent that they have. And yet that's not how the chairman's going to think. That's not how the fans, certain groups of fans are going to think, because what they want is a successful Spurs team that challenges Arsenal and City and Liverpool.
Tenuous time indeed. That should do it for our long balls. Do you have any, before we wrap up our weekend preview, any notes on Juventus versus Venezia? Will the American duo keep on doing their thing?
Well, I mean, I think we're in this place where we don't exactly know what Weston McKennie's role is at Juve. Tim Weah has seemingly worked his way into Thiago Motta's good graces, and that's good. And he's started in a couple spots. He's filled in. Weston McKennie continues to pop up and do good things when he's on the field. But remember, he missed a bunch of games, or a couple of games anyway.
I think he's only got 5 appearances in the league.
Discomfort, or whatever it was called. And we don't know if that was he pissed somebody off, or he really was dealing with an injury, or he got too fat, or I don't know, offended somebody with his pasta dishes he makes while he's over there. They don't seem to like what he does with pasta and pesto. But I don't know. I mean, I hope he plays. Obviously, on the other side, you have Gianluca Busio, who made his way back into the national team on the strength of his play at Venezia. So it'll be interesting to watch.
I'm interested to hear some fan fiction. Who did Naomi Girma? What did she do to offend someone in the hierarchy? Did she spill soup on Johnny's soup?
American. That's it, Robert. Stop trying to complicate this. It is anti-American bias.
Have your say, MK Ultras. Throw in the chat. What did Naomi Girma do other than being American? We'll see. Being American, being openly American, we'll say. But like and subscribe. Morning Kick Around on the YouTubes. Join the MK Ultras, y'all. And contact or follow along on social media. Kick Around on X, Instagram, and the Blue Sky. Let's take a moment, relax, and gear up for the next segment. Here comes a culture war. All right, Culture War here on Friday morning. And it's kind of been a theme of the show, but American bias in Europe seems to be a thing. And CBS documentary following Christian Pulisic aired the first episode this week. And there was a segment, what would you call it, a montage of folks, both hearing Weston and Christian discuss American bias themselves, and then hearing some other voices on it. What did you think of the show in general and the commentary on the American bias?
Well, I think we're going to watch the clip together, the one that CBS Golazo posted to social media, which, I watched the episode. Paramount sent me a screener, so I got a chance to watch it a little bit ahead of time. So it's been a while since I've seen it. But I think...
Should we give a language warning on this clip too?
Is there a language warning?
Well, Christian.
Spicy.
Christian.
Let's see. Because I don't think people expect Christian Pulisic to be spicy. So maybe we should let people hear it, Robert, rather than you. You're biasing people right now. Stop biasing people. All right, here we go.
Definitely a bias.
For sure, it's out there.
And it's just something that you get used to.
It pisses me off in a way.
I go through it most of the time whenever I'm at Juventus. Every year somehow I'm on the out and I'm ready to be discarded. And then, it's like every summer, it's like I'm a new player coming in, having to, make a name for myself.
If it comes down to me or them, and it's a 50-50 for the call from the coach who's gonna play or something like that, I think it exists.
Well, the Americans, they've got no one really coming through. They haven't really got no great players.
I can't think of a top American coach I can name off the top of my head. I can't think of a top player. I can't think of anything that come out of America apart from the money.
No one's opinion is wrong, Unless you're a USA fan.
If I was to ask anyone in this bar already what the starting 11 was for USA, no one would know.
They've been a bit better than I thought, but they're still shit.
That's where the warning comes in. Sorry for the 4-letter word from the English. Okay.
This is like your favorite content, and it's condescending English people. You love this, I bet. I can feel your skin crawling from here.
We haven't even gotten to the best part, Rob. Let's keep going because it's coming.
You name me one American player that you can name.
Not to be rude, but
Okay, first of all, let me just say that's an
You can name the name. Name the name.
You name me one American player that you can name.
Name them, bro.
Here we go.
who are they? Who are they?
I think the Americans, I think they think the best at everything.
Let's play soccer. I want to play soccer. I love soccer. I played soccer since I was 2 years old.
When I saw this the first time, I thought of you immediately when I saw this.
I'm a nonviolent person. I mean, certainly never would consider, but it makes you so angry, right? It makes you so angry there.
I love the playing. I played soccer since I was 2. Hit a little close to home. I've heard so many people say that.
It's not even really that they don't think American soccer is good, right? I'm a reasonably I'm a reasonable person. I can see, and I've been covering and talking about American soccer for a very long time. I'm very aware of the American place in the world's game. We don't have to the point of the several blokes over there in the pub or whatever.
Name one name.
We don't have one name. We can't name one. You can't name me one player that you can name. You can't name one player that you can name from America. I get it. I don't expect Landon Donovan to be in anybody's head over there. I don't expect Dempsey even, unless you're a Fulham fan, to be somebody that they point to. And even if they did say, well, Clint Dempsey was a good player, they wouldn't say he's a great player, right? He didn't elevate to the level that that English people are used to thinking about great players. I completely get that.
He was a player that played there.
That thing where it's like sucker or whatever that was, whatever that attempt at an American accent was, and I am offended. I am deeply, deeply offended. First of all, maybe I do know some people who sound like that, but not exactly like that. That wasn't even really good. She was kind of slipped there. 2 years.
She had it for the first couple words.
It did fall apart. Got to keep working on that accent, babe. Okay.
Consistency is key.
I don't. Okay, to the point of this. All right, actually, there's a little bit more. Let me see what we got left.
It's football. It's not soccer. They got it wrong.
I don't think they know about football. They still call it soccer, don't they? Soccer. So
you agree that historically it's been more difficult for American players to break into Europe?
No, I don't believe. To say there's never been a bias against American players out.
All right, I think that's pretty much all we got there. That's Clint Dempsey at the end, who obviously, again, would have some experience. And I think, Clint Dempsey's career is a reflection of having to prove, just like Weston McKennie is going through at Juventus, having to prove to different managers over and over again at Fulham and then at Spurs that he could play, that he wasn't a liability, that don't pick the European or the South American just because they're European South American. Like, I'm better than they are. The chip on Dempsey's shoulder was a big part of the reason he was able to succeed the way he did. And you do wonder, like, if Clint Dempsey wasn't American, would his career have gone differently? Would he have been at Liverpool before there was even talk about him moving from Fulham when he eventually ended up at Spurs? Because there was that. I mean, I find it impossible to believe, because Zlatan doesn't think there's a bias.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what his follow-up comment to that was, because I feel like he was about to say something that might have been important.
Look, I think Zlatan's coming from the perspective of somebody who was an all-time great player. Mm-hmm. And for him, if you can play, you can play. It's easy for him not to think about where you're from, because he's already going to be on the field every single time the team is picked. Mm-hmm. Zlatan never had anybody come to him and say, well, you're not good enough because you're Swedish, or have that feeling. Because he was already in those systems. He goes to Holland, he goes to Italy, he goes to wherever he went, he was successful. So maybe the Barcelona stint. But he had the support of managers, he had the support of clubs, he had the support of fans. Look, I think it's ridiculous to think there's no bias. I don't know how deep it goes, and different clubs might be different in the way that it comes out, or the way that it is expressed, Rob. But it's insane to think there's no bias when Americans didn't for a very long time take the game seriously, and we didn't have players going to Europe, and we're still only what 30 years removed from any Americans being in Europe, and we're only 20 years removed from anybody having any decent success to actually crow about, and that's probably what Dempsey. Who else? I mean, who else do you say? Oh, that's an American who succeeded in Europe.
I would say Tim Howard is probably one of the names.
Goalkeeper.
And Brad Friedel.
And goalkeepers, no offense to
Asterisks,
goalkeepers, but there's Americans are good with their hands. Therefore, the goalkeepers are going to be good. That makes sense to them. What doesn't make sense is that anybody could be an outfield player and be good and be American.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You're not wrong about that. And kind of to fine tune a question here, we didn't hear from him, but Timothy Weah, American. But do you think he faces the same kind of bias because of his last name?
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show. Tim Weah is a different case. He obviously sounds American when he speaks English.
But no one's going to deride him like you don't know anything about football.
He gets a pass, or he doesn't have the same stigma because even though he's American and grew up in New York, his dad is a once upon a time Ballon d'Or winner. So, and that's an interesting thing, right? Like it does feel like it's somewhat selective. Nobody looks at Anthony Robinson and goes, "That's an American." What they do is they go, "Well, he represents the United States, but he's an English player, right? His pedigree is English." I think that is fascinating. This idea, and think about, growing up playing sports in this country, like those biases, not the exact same ones, but they were on display. It's actually very obvious in American soccer, now that I think about it. And this was true when I was growing up in the 80s and playing, at a time when soccer was not a big deal here. And I know it's been true as recently as 10, 15 years ago when I was covering youth soccer tournaments. If you have an accent, you know more about soccer. If you have an English accent, a British accent, you are an authority. If you have an American accent, not so sure you know what you're talking about. And parents will pay a premium to have their kid coached by somebody who has an English accent. Now, that doesn't mean that every one of those people is a fraud or that there aren't very earnest and very, very important people that have come over and helped grow the game. I think that's definitely true. But I do think there's a lot of this natural inclination to think if you're English, you're a better soccer player or you're a smarter coach or you know more about the game. It comes out in our broadcasting, right? People in this country like it better when there's an English accent on their broadcast. That's just a thing. And it goes the other way. It's the opposite effect in Europe. You're American? Well, you can't know shit.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong there at all. And to that point, how different would the treatment of Christian Pulisic be if he had the Croatian passport and used it to represent Croatia? Would it just be kind of a footnote that he was American if he represented Croatia?
That's interesting. I like the thought experiment. We obviously can't prove either way. I think that if he had decided to represent Croatia, and then we do have some kind of examples like this. Neven Subotic,
the goalkeeper.
Rossi. Yeah, Rossi comes to mind as well. Those guys choosing to represent other countries means that them being American is definitely secondary. Because, when you see Giuseppe Rossi plays for Italy, you don't go, oh, well, yeah, but he's American. Most people wouldn't think, I mean, they might know, but I don't think that they're applying that Americanness to him in the same way. So I think if Pulisic decided to represent Croatia instead of the United States, he would have been the Croatian player who grew up in the U.S. And I think the treatment would have been different. I think. I mean, although you can say that Pulisic is sort of the unicorn here, he is the exception to this in many ways. Now I know he talked about in the clip that he thinks there was some bias against him or has been, and I don't doubt that that's happened. But it's certainly not the same level as it's been for a lot of players, because he went to Dortmund as a kid, right? As a 16-year-old, he had the passport because of his Croatian heritage to go and join a club early. And if you do that, it changes the dynamic, I think, pretty significantly.
Yeah, agreed there. So one thing I also enjoyed about the clip that we watched from that the CBS show Pulisic was that Weston addressed that pretty frankly about his situation at the club that he's currently in.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't often, or players don't often talk about their current situations like that. And he openly admitted, like, I come back here every summer and they move my parking spot and I'm out in the wilderness like a new player. But like if people or if other players from other nationalities had that many appearances for the team, would they necessarily be a cast-off when he comes back again?
Yeah, no, that's so. Again, is the issue that Weston McKennie's American, or is the issue that Weston McKennie slips in his fitness, or that Weston McKennie is an odd character sometimes? Like we don't know. We can't know for sure, right? Like it seems somewhat unfair to accuse Thiago Motta or anybody else that Weston McKennie's played for of some massive American bias, and that's the only reason that McKennie isn't in the team on a more regular basis. I don't know. But I think it's possible that that's part of it, and it can be very subconscious. It doesn't have to be out and out, well, he's American, he can't play. It can just be a sense that these managers have, that if you are coming from a better football culture, right, a more rich football culture, you're going to be more successful at that level, or you'll be more adaptable to a new system, or you'll, whatever it is, you'll understand the game more innately. I think that's definitely a thing. It's interesting to me that these players are speaking out directly. Not Weston McKennie's not going to the press to make a big point of this and yell about it, but when he was asked for the documentary, he frankly said it as you described. Christian Pulisic wrote a book, or had a book ghostwritten about him, in which he criticized Thomas Tuchel while Thomas Tuchel was still managing Chelsea. Now, I think Tuchel was quickly fired after that. It had nothing to do, I don't think, with the book. But Pulisic was clearly not saying, well, I gotta hold this in. I got to keep this to myself, my criticism of my manager. I don't think that was directly about American bias, but I think it was Pulisic saying, you've treated me poorly. And clearly, if he's talking about it here, this is sort of an undercurrent thing for some of these guys, that they think that being American has been used against them.
So the show Pulisic, are those shows debuting weekly? Is that a weekly show?
No, I think the first episode is out, and the next couple don't come out until January, is my understanding on that.
Interesting stuff. Pulisic, I mean, first episode giving us a decent amount to talk about. And if you're new to the show, thank you for tuning in. Click the subscribe button, get in, and join the MK Ultras as we stampede towards 500 and then the eventual 50,000 subscribers. Or follow along at MKickround on the social media. Write us a note, morningkickround@gmail.com. All right, take a quick breather and come right back with segment 3, today's big question. Big question here for Friday morning. After playing 73 minutes, started the game for Borussia Dortmund against Barcelona. Brings up the question once again, where should Gio Reyna go, if anywhere, in January?
Man, okay, so let's analyze this situation first. So Borussia Dortmund, in terms of their standing in the Champions League, they are not guaranteed a top 8 spot and a bye into the round of 16. They weren't before this game, and really, no matter what happened in that match, win, lose, draw, they wouldn't be guaranteed that spot. But they are almost certainly, I think it's pretty close to 100%, that they were going to be in the top 24 of the Champions League phase, and therefore move on in the competition. So Nuri Sahin had some house money to play with in this game against Barcelona. That comes midweek when they have Hoffenheim on the weekend back in the Bundesliga. And consider the position of Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga right now. They are massively underperforming to their usual standard. They are on 21 points. They're in 6th place, right? They are 12 points off the pace of Bayern Munich leading the way. Bayern's going to win the title. I think that's pretty much over. But they are not even top 4 yet. And making the Champions League is paramount at Borussia Dortmund. I think Nuri Sahin knows his job is in big jeopardy if Borussia Dortmund's not in those top 4 spots, and very, very soon. So what did he do with his lineup? Having some house money to play with in the Champions League, knowing he's got a massive game on the weekend, needing to improve his place in the Bundesliga table, he plays a bunch of kids. Not all kids. He plays a mix, right? He plays some guys that you wouldn't expect to be in this lineup.
Some squad rotation there.
Doranville, Reyna, these are not guys that are typically in a Borussia Dortmund lineup when you have a meaningful match in front of you. He's also got some guys that are coming back. He's got some injuries. Julian Brandt is injured, supposed to come back this month. He's got Nicolas Sula out, so he starts Emre Can as a center back. This just was not an ideal moment for Nuri Sahin to go for it against Barcelona. Now, they end up losing the game 3-2, and they were in it thanks to Guirassi's goal, his penalty kick in the 60th minute, and the goal he scored in the 78th. And you could even argue that they missed some clear chances. The number of offside calls against Borussia Dortmund was maybe indicative of the mix of that group, by the way, on the attacking side. And Barcelona, Barcelona is very good. Like, you would have a difficult time beating Barcelona no matter who you rolled out if you're Borussia Dortmund. So what I'm trying to say here is I don't look at this, the 73 minutes that Gio Reyna played starting for Dortmund in the Champions League against Barcelona, as indicative that suddenly Gio's in Sahin's plans. Like, I don't see this and go, you know what? I feel comfortable that Gio Reyna's going to get a bunch of playing time moving forward. It's possible that he will. It's possible, again, especially with the injuries. And again, Julian Brandt being out is the big thing here. Because when Brandt comes back, Gio's on the bench. I just don't see any way around that conclusion. Because Gio doesn't play. He's not the speedy guy. He's not going to take Jamie Gitten's place. Right? That's not going to happen. When Adeyemi is healthy, he's not taking Adeyemi's place. Right? That's not going to happen. You know that there are only so many places you can play Gio Reyna. He's not a 6. He's more of a 10. He has a role, a very specific way of playing that can be useful against certain teams. But if you have a player like Brandt, who's maybe going to do more of those things, has more experience, who you trust, Gio's going to lose out. So yeah, Rob, the question is, should Gio leave?
Should Gio leave? I mean, to your point, this was kind of a shop window sort of a moment for him, and so that maybe puts your thought into mind that Dortmund is definitely open to moving him. I saw on another show Stu Holden speculating that he thought that Spain might be a good destination, that he thought that he had the profile of a La Liga player. And I look at the Spanish league, and there is a team in the Spanish league that Stu Holden does have an ownership stake in. I was going to say, is there some nepotism ties to hinting towards a Mallorca move?
I don't think that's what nepotism means, Rob. But
nepotistic friends and family, right?
Oh, I guess. Well, are they friends? I don't know what their relationship is. How the whole?
I feel like Stu Holden is probably American friendly. Yeah.
Okay, so it's that. Okay, it's more like okay. I don't know about. So that's a lot of that comes down to wages. It comes down to money, right? There's some money things there. Of course, we're a year removed, roughly, from Gio Reyna making a choice about a loan that turned out to be a disastrous, spectacular failure, right? Yeah. And that was the move to Nottingham Forest. And that was sort of predicated on this idea that Nuno Espirito Santo, represented by the same people that represent Gio changed his agent right at that moment. In fact, I had heard through some back channel stuff that, there was a very different opinion at Dortmund as to what Gio should do. They did not like the Nottingham Forest move. He was pushing for it. The owner, the agent gets involved. His dad gets involved. I mean, make no mistake about this. Claudio Reyna is very, very, very involved in Gio Reyna's career at this point, still, despite everything. And but I don't know. I mean, it's a lovely idea to have him go to Spain, but you have to have a willing partner. I'm of the opinion, without knowing what the destination has to be, without having a clear idea on what that looks like, okay, go look at the Bundesliga table, look down the Bundesliga table, and tell me where you see that maybe there's somebody who could make a safe, soft landing space for him. Like, could he go play at Gladbach for the remainder of the season? Could he play at Werder Bremen? Could he play at Augsburg, Union Berlin, these kind of clubs? Could he find a place? Could he go St. Pauli, maybe help save St. Pauli from relegation? I don't know. I mean, you have to look at their rosters and their managers and how they play and whether those be good fits, and all those things are moving pieces. And again, there's the money issue. Without getting into the detail, yes. I am of the opinion that yes, Gio Reyna needs to take another swing at this. Last year was a bad move. But that doesn't mean you don't try again. Just because Nottingham Forest didn't work out doesn't mean that you can't find a decent place to play for the remainder of 2024-25. Because I do not see, for that club in this moment, I do not see a lot of minutes for Gio Reyna. If he wants to come off the bench, get 10 or 15 minutes every appearance at most, fine. But those 73 minutes he played in the Champions League on Wednesday, those were more minutes than he had collected in his last 5 appearances for Dortmund. And I don't think one game shows us that he's going to suddenly fall into a rich vein of playing time.
Yeah, that's wild to put that in perspective. Just that one game, not even a full game, massively multiplies his minutes played. In the chat, we'll go there. A no name says he should go to Genoa or another lower mid-table team in a top 5 league, if possible. And in looking down the table in Germany, like you said, St. Pauli, it would be an interesting story for him to go there. But one of the criticisms of the move to Nottingham Forest was that's a relegation, threatened team.
What do those
Maybe
teams do?
a creative, borderline luxury player that we think Gio might not have a place there.
Yeah.
It might be like a comfortable mid-table team that's looking to add to maybe like get them up into those, maybe into the outside competition for maybe Europa or like that 4th spot. So those are like teams just outside of there, just below Dortmund. There's Stuttgart, Freiburg, Mainz, Werder Bremen, Gladbach, like you said. I mean, fan favorite Union Berlin, and they've had Americans there in the past as well. That might be interesting. But do you think that moving down the table in Germany is better than Spain?
I don't know about better. I think he could be okay in Spain. I mean, at this point, again, we're getting all picky about this?
No, just
Really?
playing time where he's not going to be
time.
suffering, right? We don't want him to suffer.
I do not care. I do not care. I mean, obviously, there's also like the personal element of it. Like Gio has to be comfortable wherever he goes. Loans are always difficult because you weren't, the incentive for the team to play you has to exist, right? There has to be an incentive. So if you go to a club that is comfortable, why would they play you? We're comfortable. We're good. We've got our guys. Like, we know our guys, and we've got a squad we can trust. If you are in desperation and you've got relegation staring you in the face, do you play the 22-year-old kid who's got limited minutes, who, as you described, is a creative/luxury player who doesn't defend at a level that most of those clubs at that end of the table would need him to defend? No, probably. What's the incentive here? Again, this is the mix of problems that Gio faces. Is you've got to find somewhere where it's this perfect, what do they call it? The Goldilocks thing with the planet that's got to be the exact right distance from a sun, with the right kind of orbit and all this stuff, the right size. This is the Goldilocks problem for Gio Reyna. He's got to find that perfect spot that's not too desperate, but isn't too ambitious. Because if they're too ambitious or isn't already having too much success, because they won't need him. Too much desperation, they won't play him because they have to trust older, more experienced players who defend more.
And they have a little bit of money too on top of it.
Yeah, and there's that too. Who's paying the wages? How does all the money work out? Like, if Dortmund is fine paying his wages and just letting him season, going somewhere where he'll play, then yeah, he may have his pick of a number of clubs. But there's of course, any squad adding in January has to figure out how to meet the rules of the league they're in. So that usually means moving players around, outs in addition to ins, all those things. I don't. This is purely a shot in the dark, right? But I noticed that Brest right now is in 11th place in Liga. Right now, they're having a very good Champions League campaign. They've been one of the surprise teams of the Champions League. But in Liga, it's not going all that great. And I'm wondering, like, maybe that kind of. I mean, it's again, I'm sort of shooting for the moon because they're having a good Champions League campaign. But if you're talking about a team that maybe has some room, will be willing to play a younger player with limited minutes this year, I'm just thinking maybe that's that kind of place could be the right kind of fit. Liga is not a place that we think of immediately for a loan option. Maybe it's La Liga, maybe it's lower down the Bundesliga, maybe it's even Italy, as No Name said. But at this point, you've got to be open to any possibility. Like, I do think it's a level. Like, I'm not sure I want him to go to Holland right now. Like, I feel like he maybe a little bit higher, but he would find attacking success in that league probably.
Yeah, no doubt. And this might be, I don't want to be cynical here, but how many moves does Gio Reyna have in him before he becomes a what could have been story?
We're not there yet. And I know that the argument, we haven't even mentioned MLS as a possibility.
Yeah,
that's out there.
Yeah, there has been some eye rolls from that suggestion, but what do you think about that?
Well, I think that's all wrapped up in our psychology as soccer fans. Because it's very difficult to have an honest conversation about whether or not Gio Reyna should play in Major League Soccer for a while, right? Because when Landon Donovan says it, considering his history, people immediately get up in arms because, they feel like Donovan, ran away from Europe when he had a chance. And they don't want Gio to follow in those footsteps. We still have some shame. This is why people don't like Landon Donovan, right? Because they carry all this shame as American soccer fans reflected back because he left Germany at a young age. And even though he tried things later in his career, it was already too late. We'd already made up our minds, a lot of people. So anytime an American has the possibility of leaving Europe to come to MLS, it feels like a violation of a pact that we didn't actually make with them, that they're supposed to represent us in the world stage. And we spent a lot of this show talking about anti-American bias. And I think a lot of us believe that if a player like Gio Reyna, a very talented player, clearly talented, no matter what his issues might be, if he leaves Europe at this point in his career, that's a defeat for us, and it only adds to this perception that Americans can't hack it, and then we've got to deal with that moving forward, and we'll never win a World Cup, and now I need to talk to my therapist.
We could just be like Zlatan and just be so clearly the best player that, national allegiance just can't, it's like Pulisic said in that clip, the 50-50, decision between you and another player. But I guess you got to make it to the point where there is no 50-50s, that you are just 100% the best player in whatever squad you go to. And there's just no possibility for the manager to leave you out just based on some sort of a perception or generality that they might have in their psyche. But we've done a lot of soul searching with our nationality during our show today. Sign of the times.
Look, man, I'm proud to be an American. No matter what I said on this show, no matter what concerns I might have about a lot of things, I'm still happy to be red, white, and blue through and through, Robert. I know you got all that dual national stuff going on. Too complicated. Pick a side. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's funny to look back on it when I was a kid. It's like, if both countries asked me to play for them, who would I choose to, represent on the international football stage? And, as if that was something that I would ever have to burden myself with deciding.
As long as the dream is alive, you should be allowed to consider the question. Right, I got a 3-year-old, and it's a funny thing. I'm not being super serious with it. Right, his mom is from Puerto Rico. He could one day maybe represent the island of Puerto Rico. A little bit of a lower bar to do that than play for the United States men's national team. But I imagine this day where he's like, I gotta choose, Papa. Do I represent Puerto Rico, or do I wait for the Americans to call?
Wait for the. We'll see. See how the situation plays out. How about that? Yeah. You know what? Should we put any sort of a wager on the
MK Derby?
No,
I don't want to. You got to give me a goal and a half if I'm going to do that. I got to get a goal and a half, at least.
I'm not. I don't know how the lines are. So that would Liverpool have to win by 2 goals, 3-1?
By 2. Yeah, they'd have to win by 2 clear goals in order for you to win the bet. It'd
have
to be
fair
3-1 or 2-0.
I honestly think it's going to be a 1-goal game, but I think that's fair. If you look at history, I think that that the betting, I don't even know what the term is, but yeah, history would weigh in favor of that. So I accept the 1.5 goals.
Hold on, you think history would say that the team that's atop the Premier League table and the Champions League table might have a better shot, have a good shot of beating Fulham?
Some might say.
Some might say.
Don't want to speculate too much. And then we did not pick our hip hop 11, so maybe over the weekend we can put some more thought into our hip hop.
Yeah,
starting.
I'm wondering
lineup.
if maybe that needs to be an independent video, but we can talk about it. We need to drill down on that. It needs to be a finished product. Anybody who wants to chime in on the hip hop 11 is more than welcome to do it. Please do. Please send us your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, go back to Monday's show if you want to hear the pool of players that we selected to be added to the Hip Hop 11 on Monday. I think.
Can I make a request since we are sort of in added time and we're just throwing some stuff out there? Look, if you're watching this, please subscribe to the show. That's obviously a big deal. As I mentioned earlier, please tell somebody about Morning Kick Around. Like there's no ad budget. The only thing we've got is my Blue Sky account, the show's Blue Sky account. That's about it, right? And YouTube. If YouTube decides to throw the show up in front of anybody who doesn't know about us, that's the only way we're going to get more listeners, more viewers. So we need you to tell somebody. Like, tell somebody that you know is a soccer fan. Morning Kick Around is here, and we're doing cool stuff. We do clip the show up every day. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday that we do the show, we clip it up. So it's easier to share. So if you see anything that you like, oh, that's really cool, or I really like that opinion, or Jason's an idiot and I want to share his idiocy, you can do that, right? You can put those things on socials, share them with your friends, and let them know that we exist. That's a good idea.
El Kikiko tomorrow.
No.
MK Darby. All right, we'll leave it be. All right, have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Your morning's been kicked.